For our next question, our first responder will be Mr. Omar. We are concerned about crime in our neighborhood. What is your impression of the crime situation, and what would you do about it?
So I mentioned earlier that we have the endorsement of the Police Association, and you may ask yourself, why is that? And it's because I not only listened to what they had to say, but I was able to fully embrace the current problem and the current issue we have. Let me start by saying we have a very safe city. It's a city that we should all be very proud of, that we should all be very comfortable with. We can walk in our streets and not be concerned. Yet, we have 63 surrounding cities in the Metroplex. D Magazine did an entire listing of the best suburbs. And we ended up ranking in the best suburbs 36th overall, which to me was not good enough. And so I started looking into it. And when I looked, I saw that in nonviolent and violent crimes, we ranked somewhere around 36th and 37th. When I saw that, I said, that's a problem. Now, granted, it's something that I've recently discovered, probably over the last 6 months. And so I began speaking to folks in our police force to figure out what could this be. And ultimately where they point is they point towards the problem of drugs. We happen to have the only city. There are cities that surround us, so we're not the only city, but there are cities who surround us that all have a narcotics task force. That means that they're proactively going after drug dealers and drug enterprises. Garland, Addison, Plano, Dallas, right in the middle, there's a city without a narcotics task force. This is something that's a problem. Now, you will hear that maybe it's not a problem or maybe we've already got the solution to the problem, but what I would tell you is if the solution is producing a 36th and 37th ranking, it's not good enough for me. And so you would see this as a top priority. One of the things that I would absolutely be laser focused on, because we have to determine how we can get ourselves to be one of the safest cities as opposed to just a safe city.
So I think that this will be a really good opportunity for me to demonstrate the way that my opponent and I go about decision making and idea launching differently. So first of all, foremost, let me again reiterate what Mr. Omar said, is we do have a safe city. We are very, very fortunate to have an outstanding police force. We have done wonderful things in the area of Crime Watch, neighborhood patrols, National Night Out. So I would agree, too, that in general we are a safe city. But you can always improve. Now back to this big idea. So I heard about this narcotics unit, kind of like some of you all are hearing about it for the first time in a forum. Now, this has been presented as a serious problem in our community, that we've got a drug problem, and that the statement that night was that the police chief said we didn't. So I took that very seriously. And so when I am presented as a council member and the mayor pro tem with a statement like that about the city, the very first thing I did was to ask for a meeting with the police chief to say, this is what has been stated. Can you tell me the facts about the situation? I will tell you. My opponent did not meet with the police chief. He talked to the guys on the street. And granted, they have one perspective, but you've got to also take the perspective of the leader who is assigned with the overall look of the department. So when I met with the police chief, what I learned was, in fact, that no one said we didn't have a drug problem. We just go about it in an innovative way. And it's a way, to me, that makes sense. In Richardson, Texas, the biggest drug problem we have is with the guy smoking pot in their house. And if you look at our statistics, you will see that the in-drug user arrests have gone up significantly because all of the guys on the street are trained. We also have a special operations unit whose whole job is to address some of these pressing issues. Time out.
Mr. Omar?
Standard operating procedure versus looking for a way to do it differently. You saw me speak to the people on the street because I wanted to know exactly what they were seeing. I was curious, and I found out the answer. The answer is that it's not just a guy smoking pot in his bedroom. It's a grow house in Breckenridge. Just within the last couple months, there was a house found in the Breckenridge area, nice, beautiful home, with 500 marijuana plants. That's a whole lot of people smoking in their bedrooms, not just one. And so what I would ask you is does that sound like a problem? To me, it does. To me, a drug-related death in Southeast Richardson is a problem. And so we can say, gosh, we've got a great plan and it's going to work out, but 36th and 37th would not be acceptable to me as mayor. And as a leader of this city, I would say I want to look for every way possible to make us the safest city in the Metroplex, not 36th and 37th.
So now to finish my answer, that special operations unit is trained to handle exactly that grow house. There's about 4 of those incidents a year. And so this task force, this group, immediately becomes the narcotics unit. They just aren't called that. So they are trained to take care of those grow houses. And in addition to that, we have a dedicated captain on a DEA task force. Now, again, I'm going to point out a pretty big difference right now, which is when talking to the police chief and the city manager about this idea of a narcotics unit, $1 million a year is what that will cost you. Now, if we've got a problem that's not being addressed, and I was assured by the police chief that these grow house issues are in fact being addressed, I want to ask you, where does that $1 million come from? This is an example of my opponent throwing an idea out to an audience without fully vetting it and not stopping to think about the fact that there's $1 million price tag attached to that idea.